Good morning. Hi. I hope that you started a very good morning and you've had your coffees. Um, I would like to thank you all for attending and please be seated. They're closing the door so that the ambience noise is not coming in. I would like to introduce our moderator on stage, Mr. Mario Driussi, researcher at Virtual Vehicle Research GmbH. Please, I would like to hand it over to him to introduce our speakers and moderate the panel. Thank you. Talk.
So hello and welcome to the second day of this OCX Automotive track. So I'm happy to announce our first talk today. It has the title Open Source Basics for Automotive, How to be a Good Open Source Citizen in the Automotive World. And for that, please welcome our speakers on the stage. So it's Harald Mackamul, Senior Expert at Robert Bosch, and Andy Riexinger from
Schwarz Digits Cloud, GmbH and Co. KG.
Former also Robert Bosch. So
Former
welcome.
Robert Bosch. Yeah.
Okay. Applause.
So, good morning, everyone. So, we would like to present today the open source basics for the automotive world as we experience some, how to say it, a little bit of difficulties within that. So, therefore, it was for us a real, not a challenge, but a mission to talk a little bit about that. So, therefore, we want to talk a little bit about that. So,
yeah,
we are.
You already heard my name, Harald Mackamul. I'm working at Bosch Central Research, and in the Eclipse world, I'm project lead of App4MC and also part of the Automotive Project Management Committee. And we will talk about that later. That is the background of our inspiration for this talk.
Yeah, and my name is Andy. So I was with Bosch for about 28 years. Now I'm an open source advisor at Schwarz Digits Cloud, also a member of the Automotive PMC and co-project lead for two Eclipse projects. One is Eclipse AutoWorks and one is Velocitas, and also committer for other projects like the SDV landscape I presented yesterday. So right now we see two worlds are colliding, means automotive, the automotive world with a real long history, it's about 140 years, starting with just hardware, no software, meets now the open source world. And you can really imagine it's a real different DNA where we come from. But we have the same future. So we are all here. It's an open source conference. It's about a software-defined vehicle. We have all the interest in open source to bring that further, to overcome some hurdles, to enable collaboration, talk with each other, bring things forward. But what is the automotive reality? Who is in the automotive world, in an automotive company? Okay, more or less all here. So you know about the hierarchy within the automotive world. You have supervisors, you have CTOs, CEOs. Everyone wants to tell you how to do your work. Often you have the close development because it's all IP protected. You have some patents of stuff. So therefore, oh, it's mine. I need that. And I do everything better than the others. So therefore, yeah, no one has to see what I am doing, just only in the products later on. We have there long release cycles. So you see, new car, when does it come? It takes some years to the next one. We have an internal ownership of all that stuff. Also within the companies, yeah, I can do it better than the others. So therefore, okay, there's a solution out there, fulfills, yeah, let's say 90 or 80 to 90% of my requirements, but not 100%. What I'm doing right now, okay, then I will make it by my own because I'm the best one. But how looks the open source reality? So there's everything about meritocracy, means you have to earn your status, you have to show what you are doing, the others can assess what you are doing. Therefore, transparency is really, really necessary. Everyone can see what you are doing. It's a kind of a business card, what developers do. So what I saw also in the automotive industry, it's also a kind of software quality asset if you in the open, if you be transparent. Because the developers see, oh, the software goes open. Everyone can see what I did. I have to do this, and this. I have to rework. Oh, and at the end, the solution will not be 80%, it will be 125% at the end. Also the continuous collaboration. What I learned, so it was a really great experience from my point of view. So it's about just 7 years ago where I met Rex. Rex also a former automotive guy, or still an automotive guy, but from a competitor company. So and therefore, typically without open source, it was not possible to talk to each other. And now we had the chance to talk about open source stuff. And that was the start of a real cool collaboration. And not only collaboration, in the meantime, it's also friendship. And therefore, and therefore I like that really. And what it's also hard for managers, it's the community ownership. As mentioned before, in the automotive world, you have your supervisors. They want to tell you what to do. But now they have the challenge that others are deciding what to do, how an open source project evolves, what comes in, what not, the discussion in the open. And that's, from my point of view, even if I'm a long-time automotive guy, but I learned to love open source, and this is really, really necessary. But what's the real problem when automotive meets open source? It's not about the tooling, because have a look at the portfolio within the Eclipse Foundation. There are a lot of projects in there. It's more than 400 projects, a lot of tooling is there. It's also not about the processes. You have in the open processes, you have a lot of processes within the companies, sometimes over-regulated. But at the end, it's really the mindset.
Okay, thanks. So in our title was how to be a good citizen. So what is good in the open source and Eclipse sense? We already said it. Work in the open, and that also means not only present your results, but also discussions, steps to the solution, and all this helps to have a better documentation and also better understanding of your software. This public collaboration, as we mentioned it here, is one essential part with competitors, with others, so there should be no limitation. And especially trust is earned through your collaboration. So it's really a personal achievement you have that is also untypical in the automotive industry. So if you leave your employee, you take your roles with you. That is sometimes critical or was seen critical by the management. So how does Eclipse define this? So the rules of engagement are very clear here. First part, the openness in the sense of who can collaborate. So you should not have any boundaries, so the same opportunity for all participants. And also everyone participates under the same rules. So no special leader of the team. So the rules are not allowed that anybody is excluded. So that's typically a first question if somebody starts a new project. Would you allow your competitor to work with you? Or is it something you want to have for your own? Transparency we already mentioned. And especially all the project artifacts, if possible, should be open. That means discussions, roadmaps, not only code documentation, whatever you have. I know that's not possible all the time, but the more you provide, the easier it is for others to join the project or to understand the project. And the last point I already mentioned, this meritocracy means the more you contribute, the more responsibility you can take and the more influence you have to the projects you are working with. And merit-based means not only programming. You can answer questions in the mailing lists, you can do documentation. This is all very valuable work in an open source project. And if others want to join the project as a committer, that is also important because that is part of our work in the PMC then, there will be an election. And the other committers can decide if this person have contributed enough, has shown enough knowledge and commitment to this to be part of that as a committer. In all that, governance matters because there are rules also in open source, and the Eclipse Foundation established so-called top-level projects. These are umbrella projects for a specific topic, specific product, whatever. And each top-level project has a number of projects below, and there is also this so-called project management committee that should help to do the help the projects to do the work, also as a mentor sometimes, and also sometimes as somebody who has to look that the rules are followed. Typical top-level projects, I mentioned a few here. So, I see that will not work. There is another line in it. But as you can already see, Adoptium is a typical example of a product. So Eclipse Runtime is a very clear area. Then we have the big Automotive. We have smaller things like digital twins. But all these projects have something in common, and it should help the projects in this top-level project to work together, to communicate, and to have a common basis. And now this should be one below in the automotive part. So we are one of the bigger top-level projects. These 28 active member companies and 47 projects have rapidly growing in the last 2 years at least. So even strong focus on software-defined vehicle, for example. And with the more than 2,000 commits typically in 1 month, that's a clear sign of very good activity. A little bit more in detail, you can read the names. We have car manufacturers, suppliers, technology providers, really a good number of very good partners here that can contribute specific content and also a large number of projects. And on the right side, you see the number of projects that have SDV in the name. So that was one of the biggest growing parts in the past. This only to show you, as I already said, typically we have more than 2,000 commits, or you have more than 2,000 commits. We are only the top-level project here. And it's also a good diversity regarding individuals and also companies who contribute. So it's not a show that is done by one company or a few companies. It's really a collaboration here. Now to this project management committee. And this is really the message. We are here to help. So, of course, sometimes we have to say this is not good enough, but in the essence, we want to help the projects to do good work, provide guidance, ensure some quality. And as it says in the second row, not control is the focus, but enablement and mentoring here. To describe you what we do in general, we have some tasks to review, for example, the elections. That was one reason why we said we should talk about that. So people who want to contribute and want to be committers have to fulfill something, so we have to approve, or in some cases also to veto these elections, and that only means not now. You can do it later, show that you provide something, and then come again. Okay, I think that's it, and Andy will take over.
Thank you. As we are here to help, so we thought about what can we do to help you. So therefore, of course, we need a website. Therefore, we have started to create the Automotive website. It's still under construction. It's not everything in there we want to have, but it's a first good step, and you can start with that. So you have currently necessary links there. You will get the information about how a good nomination should look like, and so on, and of course the contact data of us. Therefore, it's a real good starting point. And if you think there's something missing in there, yeah, let's do an issue. Talk with us, come to us, tell us what do you need, especially for nominations, for your project setup, how to start a project, and so on. One of the real necessary things, and we are all here organized more or less in one working group, the SDV working group, is one element which helps us. So it's a safe legal space for collaboration. So, for example, I would like to stress the example with Rex once again. If we do not have these legal stuff around that, as I mentioned, it was not possible in the past to talk with a direct competitor of your company. And therefore, this is really helping. It provides you a neutral ground to talk with others. You can align with your competitors, and you can bridge the industries together with open source software. So open source is really open for everyone. So this means, yeah, let's talk with your competitors. Bring things forward. I can just, cannot say it enough. Yeah, it's really worth to do that. So currently we have 3 working groups within the automotive area. Of course, SDV. I guess all of you know them, right? Or is anyone struggling with SDV? No? Great. Then we have open mobility. For open mobility, we have here also a representative, Robert here. If you want to talk about traffic simulation, so please correct me if I'm saying now some wrong stuff. Yeah, get in contact with Robert. He has the ownership, I would say, over the famous project SUMO, stands for Simulation of Urban, mobility. Yeah, sorry. Then we have OpenPath. They started with, I would say, a kind of accident simulation. And they are managing software platform for traffic scenarios as well, and they predict the real-world effectiveness for driver assistance, which is also more or less relevant for an SDV system at the end. But what is going wrong right now? As mentioned before, the project does not fail because of the technique, because the technique is there. So I guess you are all technicians. Some of you will be software developers, some of you may be hardware developer, but most of you are tech-affine, I will say, and within the technique. It fails because of the behaviors. So as mentioned before, it's a kind of the mindset. So you have to adopt yourself to the open source principles. And what we see as automotive PMC, what we call for today the anti-pattern, yeah, let's come to that right now.
the button. So we have 4 anti-pattern we decided to present, and we do it one after the other. So a broken handover is a typical thing that happens not only in open source projects. So good documentation and onboarding material is essential for any product, of course, or any project, because knowledge locked in people who will leave the project will not help you. What is specific now in our case is that in a company it's typical to say, oh, I have a new job and this is my successor, he is responsible from now on. And especially this is not possible in open source. So if you want to have somebody who replaces another employee of a company, that person has to contribute for an amount of time to show that there is enough knowledge and enough visibility to others that the other committers can decide, okay, we want to have this person as another committer in our round. Because committers all have the same rights in general. So they have access rights to repositories, right possibilities, right access. So this is really a responsible task, and it's a task that is really given to a person. So the leaving person cannot hand over to another one. That was number 1.
Number 2, what we see as PMZ, sometimes a wide range of nomination. So as Harald mentioned, to become committer, to become a project lead, you have to fulfill some stuff. You have to undergo the nomination process. Sometimes we have nominations, it's just a template. The template shows you with some brackets what to fill in. Some of them did not fill it out, so it's just a template, and we thought, what shall we do with that? So next one is, yeah, he did the good work, let's call him a committer. Okay, and how to prove his merits? No answer. And then we have also some real good examples, some are providing also more stuff than we are able to prove. So with a list of 100 links to pull requests, to discussions, to talks, and so on. This is also a bit too much. So we focus on the real good ones. So what do you think is important, what you did to earn your merits? Because it's really the only chance we can see if the people are doing the right stuff and not under hidden company borders, I would say.
Yep, just one addition to the last point. So even if you provide the GitHub user, that helps. Or a link to a possibility to see the commits of some person. It's not always obvious, and people are very creative with their names. Okay, next one is then the hidden development. That is very typical if you have some kind of product that is mainly done by one company. So very often an initial commit is of course something that is already valuable. But after that, the work should not go on in a closed repo with some new releases every few months or even longer time, but really work in the public repository and avoid these big drops of code, because legally you also have to do some snippet scans and other things if your company did not sign this agreement in general. So that is an additional hurdle to do it, but in general, if you do work in a closed environment with a closed ticket system, worst case, and unknown requirements, it's hard for others to join. And that means in the end there is no collaboration. It's simply a component you provide for an open source environment, and that can be better from our point of view. And
last but not least, the fourth anti-pattern, it's the corporate behavior. let me try to make an example what really happened. So we had also a committee election or nomination, and the colleague asked me, how can I overcome this hurdle, because I did that, and that, but behind the doors. He did also some talks in the open, but this was the only thing we can prove. So, and after some discussions ongoing there, the next step was he escalated internally and his boss came to me. What could be the next step? How can we overcome this hurdle? Then the same discussion. Then what I also experienced. So they have also a colleague within the Eclipse not contracted from the Eclipse Foundation, but also very, very active in there. And he contacted Harald and asked, how can we solve that? So this is what we mean here with hierarchy over merit. So they try to transport the internal structures to the open source, and that does not work. It's also with the decisions they made. For example, okay, I'm leaving the company, or I take over a new assignment within the company, but in another department. So my successor will be, here's the baton, I hand it over, and please make him a committer or project lead. So, but this is not how it works. But let's be honest, maybe you experienced it as well. This is how companies works. I guess it's not only automotive, also in some other company you will see the same behaviors. Yeah, but we are working on that to overcome exactly that. And honestly spoken, this is not open source. So we will say, if it's not public, if you have it not in the open, then it didn't happen, because we cannot see what happens behind the doors. Even if they say, we are open source, we are working also in open source projects. But if the development still happens behind the doors, then yeah, it don't really happen.
Good. We tried to summarize some things, but if there are any questions regarding how Eclipse projects typically work, the project handbook with the link on this slide is a good example. So you will find all what is necessary from the application as an Eclipse project, what you have to do to find a community, what is necessary to provide as an initial commitment or commit, and whatever is necessary regarding governance, how to deal with changes in a project, how to do reviews, how to do releases, and so on. So all is there. It's a long document, but if you have specific questions, it's really a good source for that. And next one is, and we can only offer support. The PMC is the idea to have people who have experience in projects they already did, and also some overview in the area they are working in. Use the mailing lists. We will respond to that, and ask early. Don't try to do it in a strange way, in some way, but we really try to help. We will do it on the mailing list mainly, because we also had some experiences. If we start to have additional mail contacts, that's not really helpful. So we try to be as open and honest as possible, and we will do it on the mailing list.
Just to add, we are not here to slow you down, to bother you. We are trying to enable you, to help you really. So some of the key takeaways, what you should have in mind when you leave the session later on. Transparency is not optional if you are in an open source project. Everyone should know what you are doing, what your ideas are behind that, how you come to the next decision, how the project will evolve. Sometimes some of the projects uses also within GitHub the roadmap features, issues, discussions, pull requests. yeah, be active in there. Meritocracy wins, and we cannot negotiate it. So it's really one of the fundamentals of open source. So if you have no merits, yeah, I guess it's a hard message now, then you did nothing in the open at the end. But try to make that good. And your behavior defines at the end the success. So if you are open enough, if you are transparent, if you show your merits, yeah, then your project, your activities will be successful, and you can reach the next state as a committer, I would say. So means to all of you, please be a good open source citizen, build trust in everything what you do, collaborate with each other, enable the collaboration. So we are all here. So I guess you are all interested in building trust, in collaboration. And if you have, so yesterday with the SDV landscape, I had a picture with the box of Lego bricks. If you have all that once, then you have your blueprint, you have your stuff to build something new, to drive innovation, to bring the automotive world further, to overcome the gap between the traditional behavior and the open source behavior, I would say. And open source is behavior. Try not to adapt the open source to your company, do it vice versa. Use the open source behavior and bring things forward. Otherwise, you will just publish code. Thank you. You need a picture.
So thank you very much for this great presentation. There is space for questions.
Not better? Yeah. So for the picture or?
Okay.
So ready for questions?
Yeah, of course. We have enough time.
Fantastic talk. I really loved it. The only thing which I was a little bit missing, this had to be an open discussion because there are so many points where I'm the project lead of Eclipse Isorix, a project, and I'm really affected by this, what you mentioned here. And I think in the Eclipse community, the ideas are great, but we have problems. People which violate them consciously. It's not about, let's say, teaching them the values. I would say the handbook is very well written. It was presented to us when we started the project. And I would guess that also others read or had at least the opportunity to read them. So the first thing I wanted to ask, how to enforce the rules? What happens if someone gatekeeps consciously? Examples we encountered is, for instance, where decisions were made, we do not use Eclipse Isorix. And the result was, just let's copy out the code of this. It's completely legal. But the problem is, it's compete with each other, not complete each other. So therefore, it's like against the open source mindset, especially if it's in the same Eclipse foundation for projects in the same as let's in the same project house, for instance. The other thing is also gatekeeping in this sense that you say, yes, you can contribute, but my internal CI has to run. And I have no idea or access to your internal CI. Or you have to buy a license from QNX, which costs a massive amount of money. And that, no, how do we enforce this? And what is your plan enforcing this? Because in the past, when we mentioned these things, yeah, it was like, we have to teach them more open source and thing, and this is, yeah, okay, we're still teaching them and it's still happening, so therefore, what is here the process? What is, let's say, the things at the Eclipse Foundation learned to enforce values and not just say, it's a recommendation?
Mm-hmm. Often it's a small path between the worlds, I would say. QNX for me is a real good example because we have also a project where QNX at the first step is forced into that because the company behind that, not behind QNX, behind the open source project says, okay, it costs me much more to retrain the people than to pay the licenses. So therefore, it's about the behavior. It's adapting open source to the company, not vice versa. And enforcing, yeah, we can just talk, we can go to them, start a discussion, but at the end, we cannot prevent that right now.
We have some, but very few possibilities to reject elections, for example, if we see really no reason for that, no public reason. All other cases are EMOs or Eclipse Management Organization, or Wayne Beaton should be the right person to address.
But you can also use the Automotive PMC mailing list to start a discussion right now. I really like to motivate you for that, and looking forward.
Further questions?
Yeah, so Harald and Andy, thanks for the very interesting presentation. It's not a question, it's more I like to start a debate here, and maybe I'm wrong and then you correct me, yeah? But you asked for this one, yeah? It's about the principles that you have shown, and I would say they apply for Eclipse because there are other open source initiatives that have other rules, even they call themselves open source. But now coming even to Eclipse, yeah? You say meritocracy is the basic fundament, yeah? But now, there are equals and there are maybe a little bit more equals because there are different levels of memberships. Yeah? So there are strategic members, there are contributing and there are supporting members. And at least to my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you're a strategic member, you automatically become also a committer. Yeah? So you don't have to go, maybe I'm wrong, yeah? That's my interpretation, so help me to understand this better. So you don't have to undergo means. At the end, if you have the money, there's also an Eclipse way around it.
So perhaps let's start with the strategic membership. If you are talking about the Eclipse Foundation, that's definitely not true. So if you are strategic member, you get a seat in the board of directors. Yes, you have some possibility to talk about strategic decisions of the Eclipse Foundation, but that's it. You do not get any committer rights to projects automatically. And regarding STV, there is also a strategic membership.
Yeah, but the same principles apply there. The only difference is if you start a new project. Therefore, you are able to come with the initial committers. Maybe then this is what you are talking about, maybe. But if the project started, then you have to undergo the election process at the end.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Further questions? Yes.
If not, and okay.
Yeah, maybe like about this initial committer group. I mean, those can be strategically chosen within like company hierarchy of like the company who starts the project, and then also majorities kept strategically because the people who are voting are the ones who were initially strategically chosen. And the question is like, how can the project like break out of this? Is it a common issue, or is it like?
It's almost impossible for us to check this at the beginning, because we as a top-level project were asked, do you want to support this project and have it under your umbrella? But if we have a number of people and it was not visible before, we cannot decide who is really developing, contributing to this project, and who is perhaps the boss or somebody who wants to also be in this role.
Yeah, I saw this as well in one project set up. I saw the list of project leads and the list of committers, and I thought, okay, I know this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. I never expect from them any commit in there. So this is what you mentioned. So this is the automotive behavior, I will say. So the fear of having nothing under control anymore. So therefore, bring in. So this, I guess that was the intention. Bring in the management people as project lead, that we have still a kind of control, but this doesn't work in that context. But we cannot prevent it right now.
No good solution to that, to be honest. Yes.
I commented it in the project proposal, but no chance. Sorry?
I read your comment.
Thanks. There was further question.
Hi,
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
As I understand it, the auto market is a lot supplier relationships, etc. And now you have people like Tesla or Rivian coming in, and I understand that they're much more vertically integrated with like less interfaces, right? Does that change the way you operate in the Eclipse Foundation and the project?
Sorry, I did not get everything as the door was a little bit open.
I'm just saying,
sorry.
you have people like Tesla or so which control the whole stack, and there's much less integration interfaces, right? Supplier and customers. So does that change anything for you in how you run your stuff here?
That's a good question. I guess not, because within the Eclipse Foundation, we try to be vendor neutral. If I come back to the example with Tesla, so Tesla is opening or publishing the code under their own org, GitHub org, and therefore you see, okay, typically it's a project with one maintainer under the control of one company. And Eclipse do it better. Okay, often in the start you have also a project with one company, but that evolves and it's vendor neutral because it's not under the GitHub org, Tesla, Bosch, Conti, whatever. If this answers your question.
Perhaps one more sentence. The existence of Tesla forces some of the current companies to think about the models. And I think projects like S-Core or these SDV in general is a direction to do more together and to have a common basis and a fewer parts that are the distinguishing things for a company. But it's a beginning, from my point of view.
Thank you. Further questions? If not, then the last one from my side. So very impressive what you've shown there. So you have given us an introduction what is needed to be a good, let's say, contributor, committer. And you have this project handbook. To be honest, I haven't read it. And you also mentioned that there is a mindset change needed. So from this closed source development, which you have in our companies, and this open source, let's say, world, is there also something like a training or to onboard new guys to this? Or is it only to read this book and then jump in? Or
There are also the so-called committer hours, so you can join them, ask your questions. Then there are also a lot of training videos there you can have a look on. So like Nadia in the morning said, learn, be curious, try to find that stuff. And yes, and you see it also in the automotive world. So my example typically is go about 10 years back. If you talk about open source in the automotive, they say, hey, go out of this room. We do not do open source. And now the things are changing. Everyone has to learn. It's a learning journey. And therefore, the change do not happen from today to tomorrow. So it needs time. And therefore, we are in the middle of that.
It's a long process.
Yeah.
We also started with tooling that was non-differentiating, and step by step it was more common, and there is more internal clearness how to do open source. That's a progress I see the last years.
And if you want to learn a little bit more about open source contribution, stay here in the room. Sven Erik will tell you a little bit, but I hope I did not crash your announcement.
Then so thank you very much for this great introduction.
Thank you.
And thank you.